the French Open, it's not just the best technique for tongue kissing. It's also a tennis tournament. And this weekend, Ash Barty crushed it, shocking the world and herself.
Australia has a new Grand Slam champion, with Ash Barty completing a fairy tale comeback to win the French Open.
She's done it!
And before anyone says that Ash needs to pardon her French, she is literally in Paris and she can say whatever the f*** she wants. But what makes Barty's victory even more amazing is that she took a break from tennis just a few years ago.
From an early age, Ash Barty showed promise, but 4 years ago she briefly gave up tennis for cricket. When she returned to the game in 2016, she was ranked 623 in the world. Now she's number 2 and closing in fast on the top spot.
Wow, it is a real testament to what this nation could achieve if we finally gave up on cricket. Like, I reckon if they quit now, our boys could win next year's French Open. But Ash wasn't the only one putting Australia on the world stage this week.
A remarkable story is happening in Australia right now that raises real questions about the ethics of the Australian government.
Australian police have raided the offices of the national broadcaster.
Now, this is the second raid on a media outlet in just 2 days.
It is a shocking development, Hala. We almost never see this in a democratic country like Australia. It has caused press freedom groups all around the world to raise alarm bells right now.
The New York Times suggested Australia could be the world's most secretive democracy. Yeah, and when the AFP finds out who blabbed about us to the New York Times, there will be hell to pay. Australia actually ranks 21st in press freedom behind Suriname, which is a nation so secretive that I only just found out it exists. Last week, 3 Chinese Navy ships sailed into Sydney Harbour on a mission so secret even the New South Wales Premier didn't know about it, which is a shame, because if Gladys had had a heads up, she could have put out the nice China. But this week, we discovered the real reason the ships were here.
3 Chinese warships that have called Sydney home for the past week have sailed out of the harbour, but their visit coincided with a dash to the supermarket, it seems, to load up on baby formula. Now, Chinese Army personnel are seen loading boxes of it on board.
The Chinese Navy was smuggling baby formula, or as it's known on the street, Sydney White, Lactose Larry, Down Under Plunder Chunder, nipple candy. But China's state media responded with a classic Chinese burn, saying, when the Chinese Navy visits Australia, what else is worth buying? I mean, come on, guys. I mean, what about Ugg boots or Sam Dastiari? It's been a big week for Pope Francis, who decided that the Lord's Prayer needed a bit of a zhuzh.
The leader of the Catholic Church suggesting that the Lord's Prayer, the best-known prayer in Christianity, which is prayed by 2.2 billion people around the world, may undergo a little bit of an edit.
Well, a little bit of an edit? Well, like, give us this day our daily bread or gluten-free wrap? So what exactly needed changing?
Instead of saying, lead us not into temptation, the Pope is changing the wording to, do not let us fall into temptation. He says the original wording makes it sound like God is leading Catholics to sin, but he says the devil is to blame.
At last, the Pope is finally addressing the main issue with the Catholic Church. Wording. To the UK, where the search is on to replace Theresa May in the country's highest office, although some of the candidates have been taking the high part a little too literally, starting with Environment Secretary Michael Gove.
Conservative Party member Michael Gove has admitted he was lucky not to be jailed for using cocaine over 20 years ago.
Now, the leadership contender says that it happened at several social events while he was working as a journalist.
Ah, the 90s, back when journalists could actually afford cocaine. Yeah, in those days, you knew why the AFP was raiding you. Next to confess was Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt.
The jet-setting Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt has also learnt his lesson, telling The Times he'd drunk a cannabis-infused drink while backpacking in India.
A cannabis-infused drink? Well, it sounds to me like the British Foreign Secretary drank the bong water. Well, he gets my vote. And then there was the drugs tale of the candidate who most looks like Keith Richards' disappointing son, Chad, International Development Secretary Rory Stewart.
Another Conservative contender, Rory Stewart, confessed to smoking opium at a wedding in Iran.
Hey, we've all been there, you know. You're at an Iranian wedding, you catch the bouquet's made of poppy flowers, you smoke the bouquet. Next thing, you're running for PM and you had no idea how you got there. But not to be outdone was the front-runner for the top job, the Boris Johnson of politics, Boris Johnson.
And then there's Boris Johnson, who's faced questions in the past about claims he took cocaine while he was a student.
Have you snorted cocaine?
I tried to, but
You've tried to snort cocaine?
Unsuccessfully.
What? He tried unsuccessfully? He tried cocaine unsuccessfully? Well, it's hardly surprising. It's not the first time Boris couldn't finish a line.